Have you ever felt that powerful, almost magnetic pull of the couch when you know you have a list of things to do? That feeling is not just you being tired or unmotivated. It is a complex and ancient signal from your brain, a biological command that has been shaping human history for millennia. What if I told you that every time you choose to procrastinate, to take the easy path, you are actively participating in a process that physically restructures your brain? This isn't a metaphor. We are talking about real, measurable changes in the very hardware of your mind. Over the course of our journey today, we will uncover 25 of these remarkable changes. We are going to peel back the layers of laziness and look at what is truly happening inside your head. We will explore how doing less can sometimes lead to surprising bursts of creativity, but also how it can weaken critical mental functions, shrink important brain regions, and trap you in cycles of avoidance. This is not about making you feel guilty for wanting to relax. It's about empowering you with knowledge, helping you understand the silent conversation happening between your actions and your brain's architecture every single day. So get comfortable, because we are about to decode the fascinating science of idleness. Fact 1. Laziness activates the brain's core energy-saving protocol. As we have touched upon, your brain is fundamentally programmed to be efficient. It accounts for only about 2% of your body weight, but consumes a staggering 20% of your body's energy. Because of this high energy cost, it has developed a fundamental bias towards the path of least resistance. When faced with two options, your brain automatically calculates the cognitive and physical energy required for each. The feeling of laziness is the output of that calculation. It's a gentle or sometimes not so gentle nudge from your subconscious saying, let's choose the option that burns fewer calories. This is not a moral failing. It is a biological feature that is deeply ingrained in our neural circuitry. The modern challenge is to override this ancient protocol when it no longer serves our long-term goals. Fact 2. It powers up the default mode network. What happens in your brain when you are not actively focused on a task? When you are lounging on the sofa, staring out a window, or letting your mind wander? This is when a specific set of interconnected brain regions known as the default mode network, or DMN, powers on. The DMN is essentially your brain's idle mode. It is involved in self-reflection, thinking about the past, imagining the future, and considering the perspectives of others. While this can be a source of incredible creativity and self-insight, a hyperactive DMN, often seen in states of prolonged laziness or aimlessness, is also linked to rumination, anxiety, and replaying negative events over and over. So when you are being lazy, your brain is not off. It is simply entering a different, highly personal, and inwardly focused state of operation. Fact 3. It triggers the principle of neural pruning. Your brain operates on a strict use it or lose it policy. This concept is called neuroplasticity. The connections between your brain cells, or neurons, are like pathways in a forest. The more you use a pathway, the wider and clearer it becomes. When you consistently challenge your brain by learning new things, solving problems, or engaging in complex tasks, you strengthen these neural connections. Conversely, when you fall into a pattern of mental laziness, avoiding cognitive effort, your brain begins to prune away the connections you are not using to save energy. It's like the forest reclaiming the paths that are no longer traveled. Over time, this can lead to a less efficient and less resilient brain. Fact 4. It can physically shrink your hippocampus. This fact is one of the most direct and startling. The hippocampus is a crucial brain structure, vital for learning and memory formation. Think of it as your brain's memory filing system. A significant body of research has shown a direct link between a sedentary lifestyle, which often goes hand in hand with laziness, and a reduction in the size of the hippocampus. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain and promotes the release of growth factors that keep brain cells healthy. When we are consistently inactive, the hippocampus is one of the first areas to suffer. A smaller hippocampus is directly correlated with poorer memory and an increased risk of cognitive decline later in life. Fact 5.
It weakens the authority of your prefrontal cortex.
Remember our two executives, the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system? Every time you have a choice between a difficult, goal-oriented task and an easy, pleasurable one, you are giving one of them more power. When you give in to the urge for immediate gratification, you are essentially telling your brain that the limbic system strategy is the correct one. This reinforces the neural circuits associated with impulsive, short-term thinking. Over time, this repeated behavior weakens the executive control of the prefrontal cortex. It becomes harder to exert self-control, delay gratification, and make choices that align with your future self. It is a feedback loop. Laziness weakens your willpower, which in turn makes it easier to be lazy. Fact 6. It creates a dopamine imbalance. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter often called the motivation molecule. It is released in anticipation of a reward. The problem with many low-effort lazy activities, such as scrolling through social media, playing simple mobile games, or watching endless short videos, is that they provide a cheap, quick, and unpredictable stream of dopamine hits. Your brain gets used to this easy reward. When you then try to tackle a difficult task, like studying for an exam or working on a complex project, the potential reward is far off and requires significant effort. Your brain, now accustomed to the easy dopamine, perceives the effort-to-reward ratio as poor. This makes it feel incredibly difficult and unappealing to start, creating a state of motivational paralysis where only the easiest, most stimulating activities seem worthwhile. Fact 7. It systematically destroys your attention span. This follows directly from our discussion on dopamine. The modern landscape of lazy entertainment is built on the principle of the constant scroll and the never-ending feed. Each new post, video, or notification is a tiny, novel stimulus. Your brain adapts to this relentless pace. It learns to expect novelty every few seconds. As a result, the neural circuits responsible for sustained attention, for deep focus on a single topic for an extended period, begin to atrophy from disuse. Your brain becomes conditioned for distraction. This is why, after an hour of scrolling, trying to read a book or focus on a report can feel physically painful. You have inadvertently trained your brain to be an expert at switching tasks, but a novice at completing them. The very act of low-effort consumption rewires you for a low-attention world. Fact 8. It lowers your brain's supply of growth hormones. Inside your brain, there is a remarkable protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Scientists often refer to it as fertilizer for the brain. BDNF is critical for the survival of existing neurons and for the growth and differentiation of new neurons and synapses. It is a cornerstone of neuroplasticity, learning, and memory. And what is one of the most powerful ways to boost BDNF levels? Physical and cognitive exercise. When you are physically inactive and mentally unchallenged, the production of BDNF plummets. Your brain is effectively being starved of one of its most essential maintenance and growth compounds. This reduction makes it harder to learn new things, harder to form new memories, and leaves your brain more vulnerable to the stresses of aging and neurodegenerative conditions. Fact 9. It erodes your decision-making muscles. Every day we are faced with hundreds of small choices. What to wear, what to eat, what task to start first. While avoiding these decisions might feel like conserving mental energy, it has a negative long-term effect. Decision-making, like any other cognitive skill, gets stronger with practice. The prefrontal cortex, our brain's CEO, is the region in charge of weighing options and making choices. When you consistently opt for the default choice, the easy path, or let others decide for you, you're giving this crucial brain region less and less to do. This lack of exercise can lead to what is known as decision fatigue much more quickly when you're faced with important choices. Your brain simply is not in shape to handle the cognitive load, leading to impulsive decisions or complete avoidance of making a choice at all. Fact 10. It can breed a mindset of learned helplessness. This is a profound psychological shift that can stem from chronic laziness. The concept of learned helplessness was first identified in experiments where subjects who repeatedly faced an uncontrollable negative situation eventually stopped trying to change their circumstances, even when they were given the power to do so. In the context of our brains, if we consistently avoid challenging tasks and retreat into passivity, we start to teach our brain a dangerous lesson, that our efforts do not matter. The brain begins to generalize this feeling of powerlessness. You start to believe, on a subconscious level, that challenges are insurmountable and effort is futile. This creates a self-perpetuating cycle of inaction and resignation, trapping you in a state where you no longer even try to overcome obstacles. Fact 11. It disrupts your natural sleep architecture. You might think that a lazy day of doing nothing would lead to a fantastic night of sleep, but the opposite is often true. Your body and brain rely on clear signals to regulate your sleep-wake cycle, or circadian rhythm. Vigorous physical activity during the day helps build up sleep pressure, making you feel naturally tired at night. Engaging your mind in challenging tasks creates cognitive fatigue that also signals the need for restorative sleep. A day spent in physical and mental idleness provides none of these cues. Your brain has not received the signals that it needs to shut down properly. This can lead to difficulty falling asleep, restless nights, and waking up feeling groggy and unrefreshed, which ironically makes you more likely to have another lazy, low-energy day. Fact 12. It sabotages genuine creativity. We mentioned earlier that the default mode network, active during periods of rest, can be a source of creative insight. However, there is a critical distinction between mindful, reflective idleness and passive, consumptive laziness. True creativity requires connecting disparate ideas, manipulating concepts, and actively constructing something new in your mind. Passively consuming content, like binge-watching a television series for hours on end, puts your brain into a receptive but non-participatory state. It is like sitting in a classroom listening to a lecture versus actually working on the problem yourself. While you might absorb information, you are not exercising the mental muscles of innovation. Chronic passive laziness starves the brain of the active, effortful thinking that is the true engine of creative breakthroughs. Fact 13. It elevates chronic stress levels. This is one of the great paradoxes of procrastination and laziness. We often choose to be lazy to avoid the stress of a difficult task. However, the very act of putting something off creates a different, more insidious kind of stress. When you have an important task lingering in the back of your mind, your brain registers it as an unresolved problem, a pending threat. This can lead to a constant, low-grade release of the stress hormone cortisol. Unlike the acute stress of tackling a challenge head-on, this chronic stress lingers for days or weeks. It can disrupt sleep, weaken your immune system, and contribute to feelings of anxiety and overwhelm, all while you are supposedly relaxing. The attempt to avoid stress has, in fact, created a more damaging and persistent form of it. Fact 14. It weakens your emotional regulation circuits. Your ability to manage your emotions, to stay calm under pressure, or to resist an angry outburst is not a magical quality. It is a biological process managed primarily by your prefrontal cortex, which acts as a brake on your more primal emotional centers, like the amygdala. When you consistently avoid challenges and opt for easy comforts, you are underutilizing this crucial regulatory system. The prefrontal cortex, being underexercised, becomes less effective at its job. Meanwhile, the amygdala, which responds strongly to the stress of unfinished tasks and the frustration of feeling stuck, can become overactive. The result is a brain that is more susceptible to mood swings, irritability, and emotional overreactions. You become less of the calm pilot of your mind and more of a passenger on a turbulent emotional ride. Fact 15. It lowers your mental resilience threshold. Mental resilience is like a muscle. It is built by facing and overcoming challenges. When you consistently avoid difficulty, you are essentially preventing this muscle from ever being worked. Your brain becomes accustomed to a baseline of comfort and ease. When an unavoidable challenge or stressor inevitably appears in your life, your brain perceives it as a massive, overwhelming threat because it lacks the experience and the strengthened neural pathways to deal with it effectively. A small problem that a mentally resilient person would handle with ease can trigger a full-blown crisis response in a brain that has been conditioned by laziness. You lose your capacity to bounce back from setbacks because you have systematically trained your brain to avoid the very things that build that capacity in the first place. Fact 16. It can reduce your brain's gray matter density. Beyond just the hippocampus, consistent cognitive inactivity can lead to a measurable reduction in the volume of gray matter in other critical brain areas. Gray matter is where the bulk of your brain's processing happens. It is composed of neuronal cell bodies, and it is dense in regions responsible for things like muscle control, sensory perception, decision-making, and self-control. When you fail to engage these regions through complex thought and deliberate action, the principle of neural pruning kicks in on a larger scale. The brain reallocates resources away from these underused areas, leading to a decrease in their density. This can manifest as slower cognitive processing, poorer memory, and a general feeling of mental fogginess. Fact 17. It degrades your brain's internal communication network. If gray matter is your brain's computers, then white matter is the high-speed fiber optic cabling that connects them. White matter consists of long nerve fibers bundled together, allowing different brain regions to communicate rapidly and efficiently. Both physical activity and challenging mental tasks help maintain the health and integrity of these white matter tracts. A lazy, sedentary lifestyle does the opposite. Research has shown it can lead to a degradation of white matter integrity. This is like your brain's internet connection becoming slower and less reliable. Communication between the planning centers in your prefrontal cortex and the action centers in your motor cortex becomes less efficient, making it physically harder to translate an intention into an action. Fact 18. It fosters cognitive rigidity and narrows your worldview. Your brain's flexibility and openness to new ideas are directly related to the variety of stimuli you expose it to. When you fall into a lazy pattern, you tend to consume the same types of easy, familiar content. You watch similar shows, read similar articles, and interact with similar ideas. Your brain creates a highly efficient, but very narrow, set of pathways for processing this familiar information. As a result, when you encounter a new, complex, or contradictory idea, your brain resists it. It requires too much energy to carve a new neural pathway. This leads to cognitive rigidity, or getting stuck in your ways. You become less open to new experiences, less able to see other perspectives, and less capable of adapting your thinking to a changing world. Fact 19. It distorts your brain's perception of effort. Your brain has a built-in system for predicting how much effort a task will require. This system is calibrated by your past experiences. When you chronically avoid effort, your brain's calibration gets thrown off. It begins to consistently overestimate the difficulty of non-lazy tasks. The thought of cleaning the kitchen or starting a workout doesn't just seem unpleasant. It can feel like a monumental, almost impossible undertaking. This is a neural illusion. The task itself hasn't changed, but your brain's perception of the energy needed to do it has become dramatically inflated. This creates a powerful psychological barrier that makes initiating any effortful activity feel far more daunting than it actually is, reinforcing the cycle of inaction. Fact 20. It can impair your problem-solving abilities. Effective problem-solving requires a suite of cognitive skills, holding multiple pieces of information in your working memory, analyzing them, thinking flexibly, and planning a sequence of steps. This is a heavy cognitive lift for the prefrontal cortex. Laziness, by its very nature, is an avoidance of this kind of mental heavy lifting. When you consistently choose simple, passive activities over those that require active problem-solving, the neural circuits dedicated to this skill weaken. When a real-life problem arises, your brain is out of practice. You might find it harder to think clearly, to break the problem down into manageable parts, or to come up with creative solutions. Your brain's ability to navigate complexity atrophies, leaving you feeling overwhelmed by challenges you would otherwise be equipped to handle. Fact 21. It isolates your social brain. Being social requires effort. It means engaging in conversation, interpreting nonverbal cues, empathizing with others, and coordinating activities. When we fall into a pattern of laziness, we often withdraw from social situations because they feel too demanding. This social isolation has a direct impact on the brain. The regions responsible for social cognition, such as the temporoparietal junction and the medial prefrontal cortex, are like any other skill-based area. They require practice. When you reduce your social interactions, these circuits are understimulated. This can make you less adept at understanding others' perspectives, less empathetic, and can increase feelings of loneliness, which itself is a major stressor for the brain. Laziness can therefore create a feedback loop where you avoid social contact because it feels hard, which in turn makes your brain less skilled at it, making future social contact feel even harder. Fact 22. It warps your perception of time. Have you ever had a lazy day where the hours seem to drag on endlessly, yet when you look back, it feels like a complete blur, a chunk of time that simply vanished? This is a common neurological phenomenon. Your brain's perception of time is heavily influenced by the number of new memories you form. When you are engaged in active, challenging, and novel tasks, you are constantly creating rich, detailed memories. These memories act as anchors or markers in time. On a lazy day filled with repetitive passive activities, you form very few distinct new memories. Without these markers, your brain has no way to differentiate 1 hour from the next. The day feels empty and formless, leading to the strange paradox of time feeling both slow in the moment and incredibly fast in retrospect, contributing to the sense that your life is slipping away unproductively. Fact 23. It can increase brain inflammation. This is a critical link between physical laziness and your mental state. A sedentary lifestyle is strongly associated with increased levels of low-grade chronic inflammation throughout the body. This inflammation is not confined to your muscles and joints. It also affects your brain. Inflammatory molecules can cross the blood-brain barrier and disrupt normal brain function. This neuroinflammation is now understood to be a major contributing factor to mood disorders and is heavily implicated in cognitive decline. So when you choose the couch over a walk, you are not just skipping exercise. You are potentially contributing to an inflammatory environment in your brain that can cloud your thinking, lower your mood, and accelerate the aging process of your most vital organ. But perhaps the most profound changes are not just about structure or chemistry. They are about who you are. This brings us to a crucial discovery. Fact 24. It quietly erodes your sense of identity. Our sense of self is not a static thing. It is a story we constantly tell ourselves, a story built from our actions, accomplishments, challenges, and values. The medial prefrontal cortex is deeply involved in this self-referential thinking. When your days are defined by action, learning, and overcoming obstacles, your identity is one of an agent, a protagonist, a capable person. When your days are defined by inaction, avoidance, and passivity, the story changes. Your brain begins to construct a self-identity built on what you do not do. You are the person who puts things off, who avoids challenges, who is not disciplined. This can become a deeply ingrained part of your self-concept, eroding your confidence and self-esteem from the inside out. Laziness does not just change how your brain works, it changes how your brain sees itself. And now for the most important fact of all, the one that ties everything together and transforms this entire discussion from a warning into a message of hope. Fact 25. It proves the brain's incredible capacity for change. Every single fact we have discussed, from the shrinking of the hippocampus to the weakening of the prefrontal cortex, is a testament to one incredible principle: neuroplasticity. Your brain is not a fixed, unchangeable object. It is a dynamic living system that is constantly remodeling itself in response to your behavior. The very same mechanism that allows laziness to weaken neural circuits is the mechanism that allows intentional action to strengthen them.
This is the ultimate consequence and the most significant discovery.
The changes are not permanent. The pruning is not a final sentence. By choosing to engage in a small challenge, learn a new skill, or simply go for a walk, you can begin to reverse these effects. You can command your brain to rebuild itself, to strengthen the pathways of focus and willpower, to grow new cells in your memory centers, and to re-establish the authority of your inner CEO. Laziness shows us how malleable our brain is, but that same malleability is our greatest tool for building a stronger, healthier, and more engaged mind. So we have journeyed deep into the brain, exploring the subtle and significant ways that the simple act of doing nothing reshapes our inner world. We have seen that laziness is not a character flaw but a powerful biological force, an echo of our evolutionary past that can physically restructure our neural hardware. From weakening our memory and self-control to altering our very sense of identity, the effects are real and measurable. But the final crucial takeaway is that you are the architect. The brain's magnificent neuroplasticity means that you hold the power to reinforce or rebuild. Every choice to engage, to try, to learn, is an instruction to your brain to grow stronger, more resilient, and more capable. The journey does not have to start with a monumental task. It can start with one small, deliberate action. If you found this exploration of the mind as fascinating as we did, help our channel grow by hitting that like button and subscribing for more deep dives into the science of you. Your support allows us to create more content like this. And now we turn the question to you. Let us know in the comments, which of these 25 facts was the most surprising or eye-opening for you? Thank you for watching, and for taking the first active step in understanding your incredible brain.